Doron, I want to move on and talk to you about UNIFIL, because the UN peacekeeping force stationed in Lebanon had one job, and that was to help the Lebanese army disarm Hezbollah, keep it north of the Litani River. It failed spectacularly. Israel is now essentially mopping up the mess that the world made because it didn't enforce Resolution 1701 from the end of the 2006 war. And then the peacekeepers, having done nothing to stop Hezbollah arming, and we saw images of Hezbollah positions right next to UNIFIL posts, the IDF found itself operating right next to and around UNIFIL because that's exactly where Hezbollah decided to embed itself. And of course, UNIFIL then refuses Israel's calls to evacuate, and some of their soldiers get hurt, whether it's from smoke inhalation or what. But my impression, at least, useless organization that has allowed itself to be used as a human shield by Hezbollah. And one of the big challenges for Israel's press operations was to explain that actually this was a failure of the international system. Just because you have the title UN doesn't mean you are somehow holy. Talk to me about UNIFIL.
You know, when I think of UNIFIL, you know what I think of? You remember sometimes you see them on the dashboards of cars, those bobbleheads, where the necks kind of go back and forth. That's UNIFIL. Right? You ask UNIFIL, do you understand your mission is to prevent Hezbollah or terrorist groups from going beyond? Yes. Do you understand that Hezbollah are directly adjacent to your facilities? Yes. Do you understand that Hezbollah has been shooting at Israel 125 missiles that were shot at Israel? When we looked at the map to see the source of fire, on 125 missiles that flew into Israel, when we looked in a satellite picture, they came from UNIFIL bases.
From UNIFIL bases themselves?
It wasn't actually from the base, but the outpost of Hezbollah was so close to UNIFIL that when you look at the computer, the structure that pops up in your face is UNIFIL. And obviously you cannot direct fire back at a UNIFIL base. I mean, we're talking proximity at certain places within 20 meters, 60 feet. And I saw some of this when I was inside Lebanon. I mean, not only do they see everything. They see Hezbollah going in, they see what they're carrying, they know their faces and names.
And they're like the three monkeys, see no evil, hear no evil.
Except Israel. Now, and here we have to understand UNIFIL, most people don't know how UNIFIL came about, right? UNIFIL came about in 1978 when Palestinian terrorists, Fatah terrorists, were in southern Lebanon. They came via the water to carry out a terror attack in Tel Aviv. They got confused. They landed in northern Israel. They attacked an Egged bus, and they killed 38 people in an Egged bus before they were stopped and killed, 12 of whom were children.
This was the Coastal Road Massacre.
This is the Coastal Road Massacre, March 11th, 1978. So that was what was carried out.
Good memory.
And Hezbollah and the IDF in response carries out an immediate invasion into southern Lebanon to try to catch these terrorists. Within 1 week, the United Nations passed a resolution calling on the Israeli withdrawal and created UNIFIL. 7 days later, UNIFIL was created. Now, what was UNIFIL's job? The original job between 1978, March 18th or 19th, 1978, until 2006, was to verify, get a load of this, that Israel had withdrawn from Lebanon. That was UNIFIL's old job. Nothing about terrorists, nothing about keeping Hezbollah or Fatah out of the way. Only their entire raison d'etre was to make sure Israel withdrew from Lebanon.
Which it did.
Which we did. And that's why they were sitting there. Meaning they had their initial job was not to report on terrorists. Terrorists could operate freely.
But that mandate changes after 2006.
It does. After 2006, the mandate is incredibly clear. And I was there when we pulled out of Lebanon in 2006.
Oh, you're a real old timer.
I'm an old timer. We won't tell you how old, but you can kind of see a little bit.
I don't know, with the 25 years in the IDF, you're slightly giving it away.
That's true. But I went on when I was 10, so. So we pulled
Major Spielman was not a child soldier, for the record.
That's true. That's true.
We don't do that.
So
we're not Hamas.
We're pulling out of Lebanon, and as we're pulling out of Lebanon, first of all, Hezbollah had already taken over the southern area, and the agreement was very, very simple. UNIFIL, you've got three jobs. Again, the bobblehead. They know what their jobs are. To work to make sure that there is absolutely no assets, no terrorists south of the Litani River, and to maintain peace. That's it. That's your whole job. Now, from 2006 until the present day, you had the largest non-state terrorist actor in the entire world operating in their territory. I mean, you're talking 50,000 manufacturing facilities operating in their area. I mean,
how many?
50,000.
50,000 manufacturing
No,
facilities.
50,000 terrorists.
50,000 terrorists.
Multiple manufacturing, meaning it's not just supply, it's manufacturing right there. Now, if you're a UNIFIL worker, first of all, you graduated in from an organization whose very job it was is to make sure Israel's not here, right? Not to prevent Hezbollah. You have a very weak United Nations enforcement, and at the end of the day, you're a soldier from France, you're a soldier from Germany, from China. You're getting paid by the U.S. 1/4 of your funds are coming from the U.S. You're getting a nice salary. When you leave that little UNIFIL base, do you really want to put yourself in danger? When you go to a market and you want to shop and buy something, who are you meeting in the market? These are all Hezbollah. These are all Hezbollah operatives or Hezbollah families. So even if they do want to report against Hezbollah, their own lives are in danger, and the United Nations will do nothing to help this at all. So what, am I just going to make my salary and go home? So even if those who are not pro-Hezbollah, just to be pragmatic and not reporting against Hezbollah, it is a useless, again, it's the bobblehead. Even it was the Italian foreign minister who came here after the 7th, that's like, in November of last year. He said, what is this organization?
Doron, I get why UNIFIL has been so ineffective, but I want to understand from you, as someone who had to communicate that to the international media, do you think we lost the media battle around UNIFIL?
I'm not sure. I think in the United States, there are more seeds that have been sowed.
Because there were so many headlines. UNIFIL soldiers injured by Israel.
Correct.
UNIFIL, Israel is calling on UN peacekeepers. And the Irish suddenly wake up and discover that actually they can be not only useless, but also have an incredibly destructive influence and start standing on their hind legs and pretending that they're standing up for peace and security in the region when there's never a terrorist regime they haven't appeased. But they get to say, look, we're standing up for the peacekeepers. Israel is bullying UNIFIL peacekeepers. That was how it looked in the international media.
It was
unbelievable.
It was unbelievable because you had shooting that was being carried out against IDF soldiers by these same Hezbollah bases next to UNIFIL. The IDF notifies UNIFIL
you're saying
that we're going
the
in.
IDF is getting shot at from Hezbollah, who are right in front of UNIFIL bases.
In every single case, because the last thing IDF wants to do is shoot a UNIFIL base or shoot near
But you're
one.
getting shot at from that direction.
Getting shot at from that direction, and rockets are flying from that direction, and there are terror underground facilities, which we showed, that are right next to those areas. We call UNIFIL, we announce to UNIFIL to get out of the way. Now, if there's one time that UNIFIL seems not to leave, it's when the IDF needs to respond to Hezbollah fire that's directly next to them.
Do you think this point was understood publicly, that the reason that UNIFIL soldiers were in harm's way was because Hezbollah was literally shooting at Israelis from behind them?
I think it depends on the press. From what I was saying was that the European press did not report this almost at all, and I'm not sure why. I don't know if it's for a reverence for United Nations types of organizations. The United States, which certainly with the current administration, definitely with the Trump administration, but in general, I think the United States realizes that the United Nations is a failed entity. It is not doing its job. And therefore, UNIFIL, they've heard of UNESCO, they've heard of UNRWA, right? They've seen how UNRWA, certainly I think that message to many people has gone out that UNRWA was involved, some of the workers were involved on October 7th, and the IDF, we've reported a lot about that. And therefore, when they hear UNIFIL and they understand UN, they already understand there's something shifty that's happening. The average person still does not understand this message. It's very hard to cut through the waves, but I think America understands it more than Europe. And I think that when we're talking about what is going to be the final answer to Lebanon, I saw one thing that was being proposed was, well, UNIFIL should go back into Southern Lebanon with the reinforcement of the Southern Lebanese
That's the Israeli
army.
position, that UNIFIL has a key role to play.
UNIFIL and the Southern Lebanese army with oversight from the United States. And it literally, you could take copy and paste from 2006, meaning if you do all of this, it's the same UNIFIL people. Just because they have, we haven't, a war has gone behind us, we've managed to push Hezbollah away, their sentiments are still the same. And therefore, I think we need a new, fresh thinking of what that is going to look like and who is going to be able to guarantee Israeli security, and I think Israel in general.
And that's why, as is being reported, Israel is warming to the idea of a ceasefire in Lebanon in which Israel would retain enforcement abilities to act against any violations. It would receive some sort of side letter from the United States saying UNIFIL is responsible for disarming. But if the UNIFIL and the Lebanese army don't do it, then Israel will be allowed to take action. But I'm wondering, from a comms perspective specifically, if you could go back, how might we have tried to explain this better and do better crisis management around the headlines that came out, which is Israel declares war on UN peacekeepers?
I think there's two levels to this. I think one is a more fundamental level. I'll talk about that second, which is that part of the argument we're not addressing whatsoever, neither here nor with Hamas, which is the argument of what we are doing here in the first place. And the other argument is dealing specifically with UNIFIL and this, the IDF, the spokesperson's office, has grown tremendously. You have excellent command and leadership now by Nadav Shimshoni. You have very strong spokespeople.
Nadav Shoshani.
Nadav Shoshani, who's my commander. I should probably get his name correct. And you have a fleet of spokespeople who are doing an excellent job. And they know their work, and they know what they're doing.
And I really have to credit it to the IDF that it is almost alone in holding the fort on Israel's public diplomacy. Doesn't always look good that it's a burly officer in uniform,
exactly.
But they're doing it, and they're doing it in multiple languages, and I have to salute them for that.
Absolutely. And these are a small group of people who are stretched beyond the limit, that are absolutely dedicated to getting the message out, working with reporters day in and day out. UNIFIL falls kind of between the cracks, because essentially speaking, it should be a foreign ministry issue. This is a diplomatic organization. And yet the IDF is interacting with them day by day, and we are releasing footage, and we're calling the shots as we are. And when they say that we shot on them, everything I just said has been released by the IDF very clearly. However, this really falls under the realm of having a portfolio made about UNIFIL from the foreign ministry, and very clearly getting that out in advance to call a spade, both for UNIFIL and their complicity, perhaps complicity, if not complicity, turning a blind eye to Hezbollah building right next to them, to UNRWA, that had multiple, perhaps thousands of people that were associated with Hamas, including people that directly took attack. And you have UNESCO, who time after time, this is a science and culture organization, has completely denied any connection between the Jewish people and the land of Israel. All of these entities, the metal has to be hot in advance. The messaging has to get out in advance, and we're very responsive. This happens during wartime. There's a lot of smoke going on. Civilians, unfortunately, are being killed. It's very difficult to put out the message, especially as we go back to our original discussion, which is there seems to be a reticence on the behalf of many reporters to really show what's actually going on in Lebanon.
Thanks for watching. Drop a comment below. Don't forget to like, share, and hit subscribe to stay updated with our latest content. Until next time, stay informed and inspired. This is Dejobnik signing off.